My name is Damali Soli and I welcome you to this episode of the Ideation Corner. The Ideation Corner is a space where ideas are discussed and dissected. And today I host Lindzy Byamugisha. She is an author of a new book recently published called Out of Sight, and she's going to tell us all about it. Lindzy, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Damali. I'm nice. It's really great to be here.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you, because a lot of people ask me this question.
Yeah.
How do you wake up and decide to write a book? What is the thinking process behind that?
I think everyone's story is different. But for me, I started thinking about this in 2020. And so I just used to journal down the things that I want to write about. And then at the beginning of 2021, there is something that the team leader where I work does. He asks us for our goals, both at work, but also personal goals, and then follows up on that. Mm-hmm. And so one of my goals is to write and publish a book. And at this point,
that was at the beginning of 2021?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I knew what I wanted to write about.
Oh, by then you knew?
Yes. Okay. And now I already knew. So I just needed like energy and the zeal to push on and start. That was January 2021. Mm-hmm. And I didn't write my first paragraph until February, end of February, around 26th, 25th there, is when I just decided to get onto my laptop. I think I just woke up with that. There's just something tugging on my heart. So I just woke up, got my laptop.
And sat down
and wrote a paragraph. Before I knew it, I had like 2 pages by the end of the day. And I was so excited.
You just started with one paragraph?
Yeah, one paragraph. And before I knew it, the words were flowing. You know, there was just this excitement that surrounded the whole idea of, oh my God, I'm writing a book. And so I just started writing, and I was like, wow.
But it's interesting you say that it came to you, the idea of writing started 2020?
Yes.
But then you didn't write anything then?
Yeah.
You just said, I want to write, but then you spent a whole year not writing?
Yes.
Then what pushed you was the fact that now you had it as a goal?
Yes, I now had it as a goal. But also 2020, I kind of had this feeling that I'm not a writer as such. I don't write. How are people going to see the way I write? What if people don't like my style of writing? So I still had those thoughts.
Yourself.
Exactly, and struggles, and like, what if people don't like the book? What if people just don't like the way I'm writing or telling my story? And so I really struggled with that. But I would like to say that it's something that I would think about literally every day. And I think that's the thing about when you have passion for something, or when God has placed something on your heart, He will not let you rest until you do it.
So how did you decide on back then, like in 2020, did you know the topic you wanted to write about? After you knew I want to write something, people may not like it, but did you know what it is that you wanted to write about?
So while I was still struggling with that, I said, what do I have and what can I write about? And then it dawned on me that actually I have several experiences that I could share with the world. And I think one that was most important for me at that time, also because I am passionate about education, was my experience in primary boarding school. And so for me, I was like, this is it, and I'm writing about it. Yeah.
So now once you got the topic,
yeah,
because usually people talk about these writing processes. They're different for everyone, how they get to that point.
Exactly.
So you started with, I want to write, not sure what to write about, and you started thinking about it, then you figured out what to write about.
Yeah.
Then 2021, that's when you had it as a real goal.
Exactly.
And then in Feb, that's when you actually sat down to start typing stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So talk me through how does someone begin? Okay, so for you it was, you're going to start writing about your experience.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because people have tons of experience. How do you structure it in a way that makes sense?
Yeah. So I think for me, especially because of like the work that I do, but also just basic experience.
Tell me about the work that you do.
So I work with Boundless Minds Uganda. It's a social enterprise, and we do mentorship, specifically with students, young people, and university students. Our focus though is mainly on 21st century skills like critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration, because we strongly believe those are things that are not taught in very many schools and yet are needed in the work environment. So we identified that problem and decided to bridge the gap between school to work transition. So while I was doing that work, I realized that I'm really passionate about education, and I think it really stems from my experience in school, really. And so that is how I came up with that. And I think the other thing is you need to get something that you're passionate about. Because I honestly think you can't pour from an empty cup, yeah? Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup. So
I'm sitting there typing one paragraph after the next after the next. It has to be something you care about.
Exactly. And I think the other thing I wanted from my book was for people that knew me, or even if you didn't know me, it for you to feel like I am reading to you even when I'm not there. So I think the thing is, you can't write something heartfelt if it's something you're not passionate about. So I think that's a step to figure out what you want to write about.
Okay.
Yeah,
it has to be something that means something to you.
Exactly, because readers, people that read will tell. They'll really tell that.
She just wrote.
Yeah, she just wrote just for that. Or they'll be like, "Oh my God, this is actually heartfelt." And so for me, that's how I had to narrow down to that.
To something that you specifically care about.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about this earlier before we came on here, which is that, okay, so you sat down, you were writing roughly, for how long were you writing? Because now this is now 2021.
Yeah.
For how long were you writing on your laptop, coming up with the first draft?
So that from Feb to around July.
And you at the same time you're working?
Yes.
Okay, so when did you find the time to?
So I would spend sleepless nights writing. And my mom always made fun of me. She was like, "That book is not your life. Let it go." Because I would literally be on my laptop midnight, 1, 2 a.m. And sometimes you have writer's block, and then things are just not...
It's a blank page.
Exactly. You're just staring and you're like, what do I write next? Like, you have the story in your head, but just the right words to bring out exactly what you want to say. So that was basically what I did. Come from work.
And then you write in the night.
Yeah.
Every night.
And weekends.
Weekends.
Even if it was one paragraph. Yeah.
Okay, so you just give yourself that every day I'm going to write something. It doesn't matter how long it is or how short it is. I'm just going to write something.
I'm just going to write something, yes.
Okay. And then you finish now your first draft. What is the next process? What happens?
So now I know I just can't release my draft. So this is quite strange, but me and my first editor, we called it the trash copy, because I was literally expressing myself,
just
pouring out everything the way it came out and stuff like that. But then you realize that the thing about writing a book is sometimes you don't have to write everything like that is in the first draft. So now I reached out to a friend who is into blogging. She connected me to editors. And now this is where you start to sieve that, no, I don't think this is necessary.
This program isn't good. We don't need
or
that.
Now go into detail about this. Yes, go into detail about this. I don't think you should write this and stuff like that. Yeah, so they advised on that. We did story development. What do you really want to tell about this chapter or this story? What do you want the reader to take away? And so we started on that kind of development, how to write this chapter and various chapters. And so I started writing a chapter a week for 12 weeks. Okay.
So now when you went to the editors, they just structured you more after having read your initial draft?
Yes.
After they're like, we don't need that one, we can elaborate on this one. And then you went back and rewrite?
Yes, I had to actually rewrite.
Okay.
I had to rewrite everything. So this took me 12 weeks because there are 12 chapters. But also at the same time, I was reading a book. I'm telling the truth, but I'm lying.
Really?
Yes, that's the title of the book. She's bipolar and she's talking about her experience with bipolar. I think it's a really great book. And the reason we chose that book is just to see how she writes, because it's also a personal story. And so that's the book I was reading at that moment, just to get like inspiration on how are people telling their stories. So yes, that's the book I read. And just trying to see, so this is how she tells this story. How can I tell mine in my context?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had your 12 chapters, and then after that, you went back to your editor, you have your 12 chapters, and they're fine.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're fine. Yes. Then I had to get another set of editors. So these were two that did the sentence structure, grammar, copy editing, the English, things like that. Yeah.
You're like, no, that word doesn't go with that, even though you've been using it that way
or
the whole
maybe
life. Yeah.
it's better if you use a comparison here. Tell us more about it. Things like that. Like I said, I thought I was not really a writer.
Yeah.
So they really advised on that. Yeah. So they were really helpful.
Okay. And then you went into publishing. You had to publish this wonderfulness.
Yes, I had to publish. I self-published because there were very many dynamics with publishing houses and stuff. So I had to
It's a complicated process because I tried to get into the publishing houses, but it was too it would just take too long.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to
And they have their own way of doing things.
And then they make you change
exactly your whole idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's why I chose self-publishing.
Okay.
But for me, I had to also get in touch because everyone did. So there are different people that did these things. So I had to hire the editors individually. Then I got a graphics person to do the cover page and the back page. Then I had to get someone to do the book layout. And then I had to also get someone to do the actual printing and stuff. So me, I just went through hiring very different people, which was quite costly.
Yeah. So this money was from your salary? Your salary, you put it towards the book?
Yes, from my salary. I asked my siblings, I'm the last born. I asked my siblings, I'll just post in the group, guys, I need money to pay the editor. And I asked my mother for some money. So
everyone was pouring into this book.
And I think that's the thing I didn't know about. I think I should even write a blog about this. But I didn't know that publishing is actually quite costly. So I reached there. Now I have my book, but I need money.
No, you need money.
A lot of it. Yeah. So if I knew this, I would have prepared and planned. But I didn't know. I was just excited and I was like, this story needs
But sometimes you just have to start.
Yeah.
You find it out along the way. But imagine if you started with the money, you start telling yourself, I don't have the money. What would I be writing? The publishers won't accept this.
Yeah.
So it's good we didn't know.
Yeah. And I'm glad I'm glad I just started because I don't think this book would be out.
Yeah. So now you've printed it. It's in where? Where can we find it? In bookstores? Or?
So I have not yet put out in different bookstores, but when I do, I'll let you know. So most people are just contacting me on my social media platforms and those who have my number.
Okay.
Yes.
They're contacting you directly for the book.
Yes.
How much are you selling it?
35,000 shillings.
Okay. That's fine. Are you planning to put it in bookstores?
Yes.
Okay.
I just don't know which ones. Yes.
You should. I did try when I wrote the Ideation Corner. I also wanted to put it. Okay, I considered putting it in a bookstore. Yeah, it's an interesting process. You should go through it.
I will, definitely will.
And then also before we came on, you told me that you had just was it 2019, 2020 when you finished your school, and you did. What did you major in?
Procurement and supply chain management. Interesting.
I laughed at you.
Yeah.
You did procurement and then woke up and wrote a book.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily, you didn't do literature, but you woke up and said, I want to write a book.
Yeah. I did literature in Essex High School, HSE. I think it was an interesting subject. But like I said before, I didn't think I was much of a writer. But at least I know that I've always wanted to write. I was just a little bit shy and like, what if people don't like the stuff that I write about? But I think this book has been proof enough for me that it's very important that we pursue the things that we're passionate about. And you see, the thing about such kind of art is the only way you can improve is if you do it. You have to do it. Yeah. So I think I need to write more for me to be more of a writer.
Is this your first writing? Have you blogged before?
No, I don't have a blog.
You've never blogged?
But it's coming up.
Wait, you just went straight to writing a book?
Yes. Yes. But the blog is coming up. Bold. It's part of my plans.
Very bold. I like it.
Yeah.
So tell me key highlights about the book. What is it about?
So,
because we want people to read it.
Yeah, definitely. Out of Sight is about my experience in primary boarding school. I wrote a series of short stories, really, talking about my experience individually. I share a few of other people's experiences, both people that went to the same school that I did, but also different schools. there are different themes in the book. I think every chapter, so there are a series of short stories, and every chapter is a standalone. It kind of has its own theme. So there's basically how do you relate with people, exposure, because I go to Japan and Rwanda. So there is also a different story about those two countries that I write about. And then there are other things about our way of life as students, kids really growing up, the environment in which we grow up, our relationship with the teachers, the matrons, basically the school staff. And so there are very many themes there. But the whole concept and the whole goal for the book really is drawn from the title, Out of Sight.
Yeah.
You know that
the
quote,
things you don't see.
exactly.
Okay.
And you know the quote, out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
So you don't see it, it's definitely not going to be in your mind. And so my goal for this book is, what is it that's happening in the schools that you're not telling us?
So it's written for the parent, should we say?
Yes.
Because those are the ones who are not seeing. The child is seeing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. But also, yes, for the parent, but also I'm just thinking people that can relate to the stories that I write about. Because I believe we are all going to be a parent of some sort someday. So can you make a better choice? Can you make a better decision and stuff like that? So that's basically it.
That's okay. So could we say that this is the primary boarding school experience in Uganda, or just for a few schools? Or could you relate it generally to a primary school boarding experience in Uganda?
Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, I will tell you that I needed to know. At some point in my life, I thought, when I was writing this, especially the first draft, it felt like I was making up these things because some of them are so hard to believe, yeah? Then something
You're like,
came
people
up.
won't believe me.
Exactly. So I had to go back and reach out to people that I went to school with and really ask, did these
Like,
things
this
happen?
happened, right?
And they're like, yes, I remember. Yes, I do remember. And now I needed to know whether other people could relate. So I had to get people from other schools.
Okay.
And if you bring the whole number, I actually sent out a Google form for people that had gone to boarding school that would like to chat and talk about their experience. I interviewed 90 people.
Okay.
From different schools across Uganda. And let me tell you, Damali, these things happen. I just don't know why. One, people don't want to talk about them. Or it has become the status quo that everyone is so used to it. Like, it's not news anymore. And I'm asking them, did you used to do this in school? I'm like, yeah. And for me, like, now as a grown-up, I'm like, no, children shouldn't have to go through that.
And let me ask, so all the people you talked with, students,
Yeah.
was there any question that asked them, did they ever speak to their parents about it? About
Yes.
the strange things?
So I think that's half. There is a half on each side. Some would actually speak to their parents, and I think I am part of them. I would tell my mother that I am being beaten. There's nothing wrong with being punished, but how are you beating me? How many times are you beating me? Is the problem. And with what, by the way? So that, where do we draw the line?
That you're saying there's nothing wrong with beating. I feel like there's something wrong with beating.
Well, in Africa, the African culture is, it's okay to beat.
There are good ways to punish someone.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And so, where do you draw the line between punishment and violence? Or, I don't know, I feel like teachers or matrons really crossed boundaries.
But then my question for me, because you see, the parent, I'm trying to stand in the shoes of the parent.
Yeah.
The parent, I take you to a good school. Of course, I want the best for you. I love you. And then I take you to school. I think it's a good school and a lot of these things are out of my sight. So I don't know of them.
Yeah.
So as a parent, how do I get to know this stuff? Because, I mean, when I'm taking the kid, they won't tell me, we'll cane your child just because they didn't do their homework. We'll give them 100 canes. They won't necessarily say that. Yeah. But maybe that happens.
Yeah.
But how do I, as a parent, get to know so I can make the right decision?
So I think now it takes initiative. I think it only takes the bold parents for you to go and say, what happens if my child comes late to class? What are you going to do to them? Yeah. Or what are they eating? Small things like that. Where are they sleeping? What are the school structures, the systems in place for the kids that come to this school.
But if I ask, the school will give me the standard. They'll tell me, yeah, she's having wonderful food, she's sleeping well. Of course, we don't punish her if she comes late. You know, or if we're to punish her, she'll sit under that tree, or we'll make her sweep the compound, which are all acceptable punishments for me. Those will be okay. Like, you're late, they tell you to sweep the compound, or go work in the cafeteria, or stand under a tree, or, you know, so they'll tell me those punishments, which then I'll be like, yeah, fine, my daughter, go to school, and that should be fine.
And let me tell you, they're always lying. I'll tell you the truth, they're always lying, because my mom would come on VD, and so for us, we used to kneel down. So you come, kneel, greet your parent. That's how we were raised in the school. And so you're seeing this whole picture of well-behaved kids. The teachers and matrons are speaking wonderful things about them. And yet actually when they leave, it's a completely different story. And so I think now it goes back to parents listening to their children, because I am very sure that no teacher is going to say that if she doesn't do my work, I am beating you 23 times. I was beaten 23 times in my P7, and I write about it in the book. So this is what happened. We used to do in P7, so because we were preparing for November exams at UNEB, we used to do different tests like weekly and stuff. But teachers didn't have time to mark. So they would return the papers, we mark ourselves, but you get a paper that's not yours. So you see, if the answer is Ideation Corner, and someone writes ideation and misses out corner. So I was lenient and gave them the mark. Yeah. So when they returned the papers to the other class, the teacher happened to land on the paper that I had marked. She was so furious. She was like, I want you guys to pass. I don't know why you're marking wrong answers correct and stuff like that. And they sent for me. Oh my God, it was never good news if a teacher sent for you. I remember I left my class, I was really shivering. We had purple sleeveless dresses. That was our day wear. I go with my sleeveless dress, and she's telling me, so you marked so-and-so's paper? I'm like, yes. So because we used to write our name, the person that was marked. And she's like, why do you mark wrong things correct and stuff like that? And I have nothing to say. But also,
you can't talk back.
I can't do, exactly. You can't talk back. That's not how we are raised. You can't talk back to an elder.
Those are rhetorical questions.
So if she says you're wrong, you're wrong. And she gets her stick, she hits me from one arm to another. I literally started counting, and there were like 23. I had marks on my hands, and I just ran away crying to the sick bay. And I couldn't believe it. Like, now that I think about it, like when I was writing that chapter, I couldn't believe it. Like, who does that?
But the question for me, again, stepping back into the shoes of the parent, like, I wouldn't know that my child is being basically violently beaten for, you know, yes, she could be given another punishment. So it would mean that you as a child, the teacher will never tell me, that's a given. So it means that I need to have a good relationship with you, my child, so that you're able to tell me.
Exactly. But also, I think even after having that relationship, it's important that we believe our children. If you realize children always tell the truth, you would ask like a 4-year-old, have you eaten today? And they'll say, no, I've not eaten. I'm hungry. They have not given me food. And they're being honest. But I think that sometimes parents don't believe their children. Especially
from your research, these other 90 people that you happen to speak to, was it the case that sometimes they would tell their parents and the parents won't believe it?
So I had a friend that told me she told the parent and they changed schools. So some parents actually listen. But the other thing is some things are too hard to believe because the school is portraying this image of we are good and your child is telling you something else. So I think now you're stuck between who should I believe? But also because you want good results in a so-called good school, you're like, no, my child is lying. So you decide to go with that. But I think it's very important that if you build this relationship with your child, then you're able to believe them and tell that, okay, now she's actually telling the truth. And I should be able to believe her regardless of what she says. Because you know your child, they are yours. You don't know the teacher. You don't know the matron. Yeah.
So then was it the case that, now for you, in your case, did you tell your parents?
Yes, I used to tell my mom. We used to go back to school, I think Wednesdays. And I I would tell my mom the day before going back to school, I don't want to go to school. This is what happened. This is what happens. They beat us so much, like really, really beat us. And let me tell you, I remember at least on 2 occasions, they would force me into my uniform, drag me into the car, and drive me to school. And I would cry all the way. And I think she didn't know. Like, I don't even write the book from a place of anger, but she didn't know. And let me tell you, if you also went to that school, you would not know.
No, I think you're just being dramatic.
Exactly. Or you don't want to leave home. Yeah.
So unfortunately, we're almost running out of time. But I would want, probably, given your experience and the number of people you've spoken to, to give some general like recommendation or advice to parents. Because I'm thinking that as a parent, you may have to take your child to a boarding school in primary. It's just that's your circumstance. But if I hear some of the experiences, it's a cautionary tale. So what kind of recommendation would you give a parent who you have to take the child to boarding school?
So first of all, let me even first say, sometimes when I think about going to boarding school at a very young age, my heart really breaks. I joined boarding school at the age of 8.
And that was what class?
P3.
P3, okay.
And for me, it really, really breaks my heart, because this child is your responsibility. And if you can, I would rather they join in high school. If you can, like, just create that time, wake up in the morning, take them, create that time in the evening, pick them up. It's just 7 years. But if the worst comes to the worst, and you can't, and you need to take them to boarding school, find out the nitty-gritties. It's not that hard. Just like, if the teachers are telling you everything is good, find out to people or parents that have had their children go through that school. Like, social media has really helped us. You can find anything online. Just put up a tweet. Hey, has anyone been to ABC school? Yeah. People will reach out and tell you about it. So it's very important that you do your research. The way you would do your research if you are going to a country, I don't know, doing very many things, you're doing your research. Then who is your child for you not to do your research about it? So I think if you really have to, then you need to do, you need to take caution. Because I think the other thing that I write about is, these are formative ages for children. 8 is really young to be away from home. And the environments we grow in either make us or break us. So if your child is traumatized at that age, it is going to manifest in their adulthood. If they are encouraged to be themselves and express themselves at that age, it is going to stick with them. So it's quite unfortunate that we only see these things when we are adults, and you're wondering, why am I acting like this? And yet you don't know it stems from how you grew up,
Why am I like this?
Exactly. And so, honestly, I wouldn't take my child to boarding school.
What if the best school is so far away from you, the best day school? Would you take your kid to, because I was thinking about I was thinking about it that I'll probably take my kid to the school next to my home.
Yeah. But
I feel like
nice.
Yeah, but I can deal with that, because I can give them coaching, can give extra training on the weekend, but at least I'm with them. It's either that or you take them to a boarding school, because you can't be stuck in traffic trying to get to the best day school around.
I would rather and you see, the thing is, if you look at our Uganda now, such good schools have shuttles. So you just pay an extra fee for the shuttle. And now at least you would have seen your child and then have time to engage them and be involved in their life. But for me, I think it's a done deal. For the experience that I had.
That you can't?
I can't.
Okay. So, unfortunately, we're out of time. What are your last words? Any last thing you would like to say?
First of all, the things that I write about are my experience. But even as you read, I hope that this would just be something to pay attention to, something that really matters. Because for me, I will tell you, I think I was telling you earlier that I used to dream about some of these things. and I had to go for therapy because I couldn't sleep at night because of all these things. I was traumatized, but things have started to change. I know I'm not entirely against primary boarding school. I just think to play your role as a parent and be involved in your child's life. And also, just to make it clear, I don't write this book from a place of anger. I just want to see change. Change in our school system, change in the way people parent, and stuff like that.
All right. So, well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. There you had it from Lindzy. Please do check out her book. You can get it through any of her social media platforms. You can order for it from her. So, yeah, I recommend that you read it. It says Out of Sight. It's an interesting title. Thank you.